Welcome to In the Background of Life with Kelly Ramsey, the podcast that invites you to sit down in a cozy living space, sipping a cup of tea while we embark on a captivating journey about our intentional narratives in our lives. I'm Kelly Ramsey, and this podcast is your warm space to unravel the stories woven into everyday moments. It's a tapestry crafted with intention and purpose. So grab your favorite cup of tea, settle in, and let's explore the unnoticed details that contribute to the intentional design of the world around us. Together, we'll celebrate the beauty in the threads that make life extraordinary. Hi, welcome in the Background of Life with Kelly Ramsey. And if you tuned in to our last episode, you met Dr. Renea Butler King, a friend and a colleague who's doing some incredible work. And so we're going to be continuing our conversation with her on today around the tapestry of family and community. This is part 2. And we know that as we were talking and sharing on last episode, we both, Dr. Renea and I both, had so many ahas and so many things that came up. So we're just going to continue with that dialogue. And we're speaking specifically today to think about what that community looks like for family, what the stories that they have, and some of the lessons that we've learned and joy in making those connections. So tune in. All right. Welcome, Renea. Welcome back. We're so excited to have you again.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here again.
Well, thank you. Would you like to share for those who may not have tuned in for last broadcast a little bit of who you are and what you bring to this topic today?
Hey, how y'all doing? I'm Renea Butler King, and what I bring to the topic today is that I'm a social worker, an early childhood social worker, and my doc is in early childhood, but my bachelor's and master's is in social work, and so I work within the lifespan in African American communities and at the university doing instruction.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Great. So we're going to just drop right in, and we're going to talk a little bit about the stories that we've heard within our communities. And as we're talking about, we talked on last episode that the church has been center to a lot of our work and support for families in our communities. And it reminded me of the ministry I was connected to, GAP International Ministries in Oklahoma City. And it reminded me of how individuals would come, families would come to our church, and we would see a need, and then we would build a community of support around that need. And in particular, I remember work we did with in the inner cities of Oklahoma City with some gang intervention and services. And it always amazed us as we were working with them that they had a true sense of what family was. They had recreated it on the streets and in the communities that they were in, but they had never been nurtured and loved to know what does it look like to build that out into your own family. And so they were getting married, they were having babies, they were working jobs, and they were figuring out, what do I do with this crying toddler, 2-year-old? And so the church would do classes. I was actually the teacher for some of those classes and teaching parenting. And now I encounter those same parents raising their grandchildren. They have children who now have had children, and they always speak back to how I was trying to help them understand in community what it meant and how to help. And they said this of themselves. I was rebellious and like, whatever, she doesn't even have children. How could she tell me what to do, right? And at that time I had no children, but I was sharing from that knowledge of community that here's some supports that's available as you grow and support your families. So we were overcoming obstacles, but we were also celebrating simple victories that the child got potty trained, they got to preschool, they were doing good in school, we had tutoring, all of those things were supporting that family. And those stories is what gave them breakthrough. So now as they're developing their family, they can begin to share those same things. So when I think about that, and when I mention that, what comes up for you around community work? It could be intervention. It could be just a presence in the community. What comes up for you around supporting families?
Wow, that was pretty rich. And I'm sitting here thinking, and if you listen to the last episode, then one of the things that I've been very secretive, just because my grandma ran numbers and I was a teenage mom, and so I had to overcome those things in order to do the work that I'm doing. So when I think about lessons in the community, they're pretty huge, but a little bit different. Well, actually, maybe a lot different than what you experienced, because I was raised in a really impoverished area, and there were lots of people who parented or helped parent me. I mean, a lot. You could get a spanking from the guy at the grocery store, and then get another spanking before you got to your house because somebody else heard about something that you might have done.
Yeah.
Which is even more interesting as I moved into the house that I own now. I've been there for many, many years. The person that lived next door to me when I moved in was my preschool teacher, my kindergarten teacher. And she just would say some things that just kind of really shocked me. But learning to be a different kind of person with her being my neighbor now, and as kind of sort of being peers, helped me to kind of settle in. Also in that neighborhood, we had lots of gang activity. And so my house turned out to be a house where two kinds of gangs could meet and have some conversations about things. So kids who didn't have, whose parents left planet Earth early had no trouble coming over to find out information, because I was pretty free with information by this time, because I've been so closed off as a kid about the kinds of things that I could share. So I allowed my children to have lots of conversation about a lot of things. And so their friends saw the value in that and would kind of hang around my house as well. And as you said, to this day, some of those young men and young women, particularly the young men, used to call me Miss King, but now they call me Miss K because they're grown and everything. And there are still opportunities and gifts and grace that comes from that. I mean, there's not any one of those children in the fancy jobs that they have now that I can't call and ask for some favors for myself or for someone else in the community, even now.
So now they're extending and being community to you, from you being present for them. When you were sharing, I thought of Clifton Talbert. He's a author. 8 Habits of the Heart is a book that he wrote. And in that book, he correlated it to his children's book, which was called Clift and the Porch People. And he talks about growing up in the Mississippi Delta. And his grandmother, he lived with his grandmother and grandfather, and his grandmother sending him to the store because she was cooking, I think it was peach cobbler, but she sent him to the store for some particular things. She had a grocery list. And she's told him, don't be talking to people. But his grandfather says, when you see the people, you talk to them. So he had 2 voices in his head as he's going to make this errand. And as he's making the errand, everyone is sitting on their front porches, which in that time they still did that. And they're saying, hey, where are you going? And he's like, I'm going to the store for my grandma. She's making da-da-da. They're like, come on in. And at each person's house, he was getting some ingredients for what she had on her list. She's going to need some yams. She's going to need this. And so it took him longer than what his grandmother wanted. So by the time he got back, she's scolding him, like, what took you so long? Well, I had to talk to Miss Sue. I had to talk to these people. So she goes in and she's cooking, and then everyone shows up on her porch because now it's dinner time, and they have a part of the dinner as they're doing that. And I think that I love reading that story to children, but I more so love seeing the sense of community of what it looked like. So now that's little Cliff. He wrote that book as an adult, but he's using this 8 habits of the heart that he learned in the Mississippi Delta to speak all across the nation. What was the extra piece of this story is I had a colleague in Tulsa who I worked with, and I said something about this book, and she's like, "That's my cousin." I was like, "That's your cousin?" I was like, "Oh my gosh." She's like, "He still comes home for family, like during the holidays, and he's still the same, and he's always trying to get us to tell our stories." And I was like, I can just imagine, like, what would it be like to have Uncle Cliff as a cousin, right? And the sense of community that they built as they did that. And that was his one offering to share back to this community that supported him. And that's, for me, that's a really true sense of what that community looks like, right? So I'm always amazed how all of those things woven together make us who we are, right? And she was a single mom. She just launched her son to college. And so now he's soaring. He's amazing because she had this rich community surrounded around her. So those are like some of the key things. What would you say were some of those lessons that you learned from the story you told or another story, and how we shape understanding of what family and community and identity are?
Ooh, well, one of the lessons, and it's a huge lesson for me, and I guess I probably wanted to pause right now and say thank you to each and every one of my children, because they have been so supportive of who I am. I was probably 59 when I decided I was going to do this doc, and it took about 8 years, and at every juncture of this adventure for me, it was an adventure for me. I might very well, because of my resilience or because of my resistance, end up unemployed, and decided that I did not want to take out school loans for this particular piece of education, that each and every one of my children at some point in there contributed. And I mean heavily, financially, for me to be able to do this.
Oh, what a gift.
I mean, a major gift. You know, sometimes I don't think about it as often as I wish. And I don't know that I think them as often as I should. So this is my thank you, y'all. That I didn't struggle one bit. Didn't miss a meal, didn't miss a house payment, didn't miss anything. They were fabulous.
Amazing.
They were fabulous.
Amazing.
That's one lesson I learned about community. But another lesson that I learned by sitting on the porch is that a good portion of those children that were raised with my kids, some of them still live in my community as well. And so there's nothing, I mean, it's nothing to see one of them passing by and, "Hey, how you doing, Miss K? How you doing, Miss King?" And if I have a repairman, or particularly the guy that does pest controls and stuff, I just remember one young man stopping to say, "Is he good? I've been looking for someone." So there's those kinds of gifts that you give to community as well. And even with the new people living in the block, and there's a family of about 5 kids that live across from me who have the conversation about whether I'm nice or not. But 2 doors down from them, the young lady that's been living, the little girl that's been living there forever, says, "I told you she was nice." So getting to know, keeping the old and getting to know the new, and figuring out how you integrate that as you're part of the community and being accessible. I tell lots of folks sometimes that I am Lucy in the Charlie Brown story. I just hang out that 5-cent sign at my door. Yes.
Come on in.
Yes.
I love the joy, because I can imagine walking your block, seeing the different ages and stages, and the child validating, "I told you she was nice," right? Because she has the relationship, right? And so how we mirror what we see and how we're treated is so, so key. And I think about one of the things that brings me joy is creating spaces where people can make those connections over time. And so I have a vision for a parent model program that I am going to create. I'm speaking that out. It's already there. It's already written. But of sitting around a quilting loom. And it's a long, I actually have them. I have 2 long ones. But it's sitting around this quilt that needs to be quilted. So it's already bound, has the top layer, the sandwich, and then the bottom layer. And around that loom is our dads, single dads, married women, single women, grandmothers, aunties from the United States, not from the United States. And our sole job is to be in community around that quilting space, stitching on this one common process that will then go up and take a picture on the wall and whatnot. And the only goal is not to be perfected, but a simple stitch, just stitching those layers together, because it creates the space that we then get to have conversation. We get to solve the world's problems. Children may be underneath playing as we're doing it, because children may be in the midst. And of course, there'll be food as well. And I want to be able to create that for our community, but also so communities can come and see this experience and then go back to their own communities and create their gathering place. Maybe it's in the country and it's fishing on the lake, and they all come and learn how to fish and sit and be with one another, whatever it is that center space. And those are the joys that keep me motivated to keep doing the work, to keep delving in. And this month, in the month of August, I've been a part of Parent Plus community online. Shout out to Cassandra. And it's been so refreshing to come in every Thursday and to talk about ages and stages and how you can be intentional at each stage. So this Thursday is the last session. And what some feedback I've been getting, they're like, that lady that comes on Thursday, she is dropping the nuggets. Like, if I had her when my child was at that age, my children would be so much different. And I felt the joy that she was saying, but she was saying she knows her stuff. And this intention that she's talking about, it's possible for every parent. And so I think about, in our journey of parenting, we have joys and we have challenges, we have all the things. But if we think more about those joy moments, your children supporting you through your journey, and that will fuel us to keep going when it's rough, right? And so when you think about that, like, what brings a smile to your face when you look out at your own children, grandchildren, or in your community even? What's the joy that comes in this work?
Wow. One of the joys, and I think it's a big one, is that they have access. And not just my children, not just my grandchildren, but the children in my community. And I hesitate to call the students children, but the children on my campus, they have access. Because it's one thing, I don't know what that would be like if you couldn't have access to your elders, to the people in your community, to the possibility of creating a new community or creating new relationships. They have access. That's huge.
That is huge.
Yeah, that brings joy. Options.
So I was in something this week, and it was a young person, and they said, they were speaking of someone, and they said, she not only is here, but she's here for us. And what he was saying is that adults say a lot of things and they say they're available, but she actually was here for us. And we knew she was here for us, right? And that access says, like, whenever I need to tap in, I know you're going to be welcoming and you're going to be available. Mm-hmm. Like you're still sitting on the porch at this time. You've been doing it for these years and you're still tuned into that, right? And I look at, when you say that access, what does it take for us to be available? Because if we're bogged down and we have so many things going on and we don't slow down enough to be accessible, we miss out opportunities.
So you're asking, what does it take? I think that it takes one having the ability to reflect and get to know yourself. But I also think that you have to be in a 3D kind of place and have the ability to suspend wherever you're at in that 3D space, to move directly to the space that you're called to be in with that person at that time. Good. To be able to for them to have access to you and know that that is what you are doing. Yeah. Now, I believe that they're calling that kind of sort of a third space. So you need to be in that space so that they can have access. You need to have the ability to suspend some things, knowing full well that God will bring them back to you and that you'll be able to deal with them. But for right now, I need to be right here, right now with this person.
Oh, I love that. I can't remember who the author is. I want to say, we'll look it up and we'll put it in there because he talks about that third space. I think it's Barrera, but we'll find it and we'll look it up and put that in the show notes. So as we reflect on today's episode and just thinking about that community, the lessons learned, that joy, what's one key takeaway that you take away from last broadcast and this broadcast as well? And maybe a third one, if you want to come back, we'd love to engage in conversation. But what would be a key takeaway you're taking away today?
Is because I've been anxious today, but to just get clear with myself and know that I exist on planet Earth to share those gifts that God have given me to share.
Oh, what a gift for us to be able to share the time. For me, the takeaway is how much more we need to create space for conversations and dialogues and chatter. Like I'm one, like give me some sweet tea, sit on the porch, and we're just going to rock and drink sweet tea and solve all the world's problems, right? So in community, we can do that and we can get it done. So that's what I'm leaving with today, of what other spaces can I create for these conversations to happen and to bring more voices to the table.
I like it.
Various voices as well. And so as we're closing out, our call to action today is one, for you to identify a space where you belong and then join into that space with new eyes and bring someone else along. And the other piece is I'm always talking about capturing our memories and our experiences. So getting out the photo book, sitting down with someone and going through the pictures and telling the stories of what happened. If you don't have a photo book, creating one, either digitally online or a physical book that you can chronicle all of those experiences. As you know, I have a senior, so I wrote down on a notepad his first teachers from pre-K, actually from family childcare to present day, every single year. And I could recall all of them except for one who I didn't care for that much, but he helped me to remember her name. And so I am actually chronicling that school experience. So at the end of the school year, I'll be able to make my display table of the senior table and capture all these moments in time as we're doing that. So that's what I'm doing. We would love to hear what you're doing. So be sure to follow us and to tune in. And we want to thank Possibilities for hosting us today. Be sure to check out our show notes because we have lots of goodies and resources there. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye. This episode of In the Background of Life with Kelly Ramsey is brought to you by the Possibilities podcast platform.